Christian nationalism is the greatest threat to our democracy, and this question is asking how many Americans strongly support Christian nationalism. To understand how we determined this, you need to understand how social scientists measure Christian nationalism. So I'm pulling here from Whitehead and Perry's Taking America Back for God, which is sort of like a really well-known study of Christian nationalism. They used survey data and they used interviews to sort of get at the heart of what Christian nationalism is. First of all, Christian nationalism is not a religion. It is a form of ethno-religious nationalism, which means that people want Christians to be the center of American life. And they are measured based on 6 different survey measures. And depending on how people agree or disagree with these statements, then they are rated on a scale and then divided into 4 groups of support or resistance. Here are the statements that they ask, and this one is: the federal government should declare United States a Christian nation. The federal government should advocate Christian values. The federal government should enforce strict separation of church and state. That one's reverse coded, which means if people agree with that, then they are less Christian nationalist. The federal government should allow the display of religious symbols in public spaces, should allow public prayer, and the success of the United States is part of God's. As you can see, most Americans fall mostly in the middle. So there are a proportion who are highly rejecting of this, and there are people who strongly support these, but most people fall in the middle. So here's the answer to your question. We've got 21.5% who are rejectors, 26.6% who are resistors, 32.1% that are accommodators, and that's the largest group, and then 19.8% that are ambassadors. This means that 51.9% of the American public are either slightly accommodating of Christian nationalist views or very pro. Whitehead and Perry think that as the nation increasingly becomes religious nuns, so younger generations are much less likely to subscribe to evangelical Christianity, mainstream Protestantism, these sorts of mainstream religions. So they don't think that this number is going to increase, and levels of Christian nationalism, since we started measuring them in like 2007, have remained fairly constant over time. However, there is evidence that in times of national peril, levels of Christian nationalism go up. And because people don't need to be Christian or white to subscribe to white Christian nationalism, there is the ability for folks who are not white Christian men, not going to be at the top of the hierarchy, to glom on to different aspects of this cultural framework and these narratives of Christianity as central to American life and the litmus test for whether or not you are a good and worthy citizen. So there are opportunities for coalitions to build, and unfortunately, you only need a very small and rabid amount of the population to have these very, very extremist views to cause a lot of damage. So even if there's a very small proportion of Americans who believe these views, as we saw with January 6th, they can be highly motivated to violence given the right leadership. So this is why I study this. Let me know if you have other questions. I'm very, very happy to answer them. This is really important, and I'm willing to spend the time to let you all know what's going on.